welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I will be your host for this evening, or this morning, or the afternoon. It's just whenever you listen, because after all, it's your podcast. This is a quick start on the Kickstarter episode, and what we do with a quick start on the Kickstarter episode is that we take somebody who's currently running their Kickstarter campaign, be it at the beginning, be it in the middle, or be it towards the end, and we have a very quick and breezy chat in order to let you know about the campaign. So potentially you might chuck it $1 or throw it £1, depending on your mood or your country, to be perfectly honest. So joining me is a gentleman by the name of Stephen Kendall. So hello, Stephen.
Hi there.
And off to the side, and we can talk about him all night, Gary Dicken. Sorry.
He can't hear a word you're saying.
I could call him anything at all. It doesn't matter. We could just call him Gary Dixon all night.
He'll be on later though, so just be warned.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are from Ragnar Brothers.
Yep. And
you currently have a game on Kickstarter which is called the Darien Apocalypse.
That's correct, yes.
Now, for anyone that's listening to us for the first time, thank you for joining us. The reason that we do this is quite simply, there's not enough podcasts out there about board games, especially ones from Scotland, because apparently there's only 2 podcasts from Scotland. There's us, and there's the Unlucky Frog Gaming. So if you've checked us out tonight, you might as well give them a check out tonight as well, if you feel like it. They're kind of do stuff that we do, but they're more towards the west coast, kind of Glasgow based. They're quite nice. The other reason that we do this is because we like to get people like Stephen on and Gary on as well to have a chat about their campaign. So, Stephen, Ragnar Brothers itself has been going a while, hasn't it?
Yes, we're up to nearly 30 years now, and we're all virtually retired. Myself and Phil are retired from teaching, and Gary is hanging on as a social worker still. But it's always been a hobby business. It's never been anything more than that. And we've produced about 20 games over those years. And when we started doing it, not many people were doing that anymore. I mean, it was almost the whole hobby was on its knees. And the great thing has been in those 30 years is see board gaming, really come back from very, very dark days when the video games had come in and the first computer games, it completely slaughtered the hobby. And we grew up with Waddingtons and those sort of games, and then we moved on to SPI and board games with military-based board games, all that sort of stuff. But then it all kind of disappeared, and so we started looking around for games that just weren't there anymore, and that's why we started designing our own, and from there on just jumped in and tried to produce things, and people liked them at first, and we've tried all sorts of manner and means of things as we've invented stuff and just carried on doing it. And of course Kickstarter was our saviour, really. We'd almost given up because we'd successfully been the best board game at the Games Expo when that had started off with our game Workshop of the World. We just couldn't sell it. I mean, because the hobby's changed so much in that time, and where in the past people would come to us and look us up and find us, that was no longer happening. It's all online, and so we couldn't shift those at all. And so until Kickstarter came in, we'd no way to be assured we could actually get even half of our money back on what we'd invested. So we'd have just packed our bags and said thank you very much, we've enjoyed it. But Kickstarter has given us a new lease of life, and I think this is our 7th Kickstarter, and it's a challenge on Kickstarter. It's changing all the time on Kickstarter. If you want to talk about that, can do. But we're here now with this campaign, and we're kind of fairly close to getting it. But we need a bit more help if we can get it.
Okay. What kind of games do you like playing then? I mean, do you make the games that you want to play yourself, or do you sit down and discuss kind of what you think would be a game that people would be interested in?
It's a little bit of both, I suppose. I mean, we've never designed a game that we didn't like ourselves, and we've never designed anything that didn't really have a theme that we wanted to explore. And I think that's been probably the biggest characteristic, is that somehow or other we want a game that in some way tells a story. So one of the games we did in recent times on Kickstarter was DR Congo. I mean, who makes a game about the DR Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo? I mean, it's a horrible, horrible subject. But I'd read a book about it, and I was just fascinated by the potential of that country to become an economic powerhouse in Africa if they could overcome all the difficulties they've got. And so, just out of that, you just think, well, you know what? We can look at this story through the medium of a game, and it's just fascinating doing it that way. So I think that's always what's driven us, is not so much trying to think about a game we'd like to play, but a theme we want to explore, and then see where it takes us. And it's taken us into lots of different styles of games. So we have big games, and we have card games, and we have small kind of medium games. Some of them are a bit more popular than others, and some of them are quite esoteric and limited really to the gaming market. The high end of the game, I say high end, but the more complicated Euro gaming end of stuff. And that's where we've gone. We've gone with what we want to do because it's a hobby. It's not. We don't have to make money out of it, but we like to we'd like to have a little bit of change at the end of it, sort of thing. We don't be sort of too far out of pocket.
Yeah, I mean, you seem to be kind of like the little engine that could, because you're doing all these different kind of genres of games. You've got Barking Up the Wrong Tree.
Yeah.
That funded it. It funded at £4,000. You've then got, as you said, you've got the Congo game that seemed to have gone on and went well above the target as well.
Yeah, no, that's done well.
And you've got the steampunk donkey.
Yeah, that's right, Steam Donkey. Yeah.
Stephen, what I need to know, what's the Steam Donkey about?
The Steam Donkey. Well, that was an idea that I just love going to Victorian seaside resorts. I'd been to the Isle of Man, and if you've ever been to Douglas, it's stuck in a something of a time warp around the 60s anyway, in one sense. But a lot of the great things in Douglas are the Victorian theatres and the Victorian pier and all sorts of really kind of quirky old things there. And I just thought, that's a great theme for a game, building a Victorian seaside resort. But we started off with a board, and we had all sorts of stuff, and eventually just realised it could be done as a set of cards, 2 sets of cards, and building a seaside resort by attracting visitors to different things in the seaside resort, and then the visitors generate more visitors, and you can get cards down. It's got a bit of touch of, if you know the game San Juan, it's a little bit reminiscent of that. Yeah. The cards are paying for more things to happen, and so it circles around. It's been extremely popular. We've sold out. I'll tell you, we sold out DR Congo very quickly. We sold out Steam Donkey even quicker. That's been taken on by a Russian company, and Russia's in the news at the moment. Obviously, it's World Cup tomorrow, but we did some trading with a company there, and they've taken that game on, and they took on Barking, and they're doing very well with it over there. So that's the way our business has been run. Really, we've designed something that sells up to 1,000 copies is what we're aiming to do, and then hopefully somebody likes it and takes it on again from there.
Because you're not doing like the big huge kind of box games. Do you kind of look at the guys that are, I guess, not at your side of the the timeline and think these young guys that are coming in and try to go with the big box games, and
how big do you want to be? I mean, like a Scythe type big, that sort of thing. Yeah. Well, when we started, it's fun enough. One of the things we started doing straight away was we actually wanted a big board on the table. So a lot of our games have got as big a board as most people, not quite as big as Scythe, but the actual spread of the game, it can be quite significant on the table. In fact, we've had to scale down Darien Apocalypse a bit because it's actually too big on the table. We couldn't demo it even. We couldn't get enough of the charts on the table. So we've kind of just sharpened that up quite a bit. But generally, there's a lot in the box when we produce a game. we don't. They're not very light games. Some of the boxes you pick up and you've bought a lot of good solid air in there. But in ours, it's pretty packed full of components. So it is. It's as big as most games, what we produce. Our card games obviously are different again, but even our card games, you get you get quite a lot in the box, really, because that's what we want to have. We're not happy to sort of just sell something that's too fluffy and just, I guess, I don't want to be too critical, but just made to make the best return as quickly as possible. We have to spend, we spend quite a lot. Because if you produce 1,000 copies of a game, it doesn't come out very cheap. It costs quite a bit. Even if you go into China and running it through there, you don't have much. You don't make much money. You certainly don't make in fact, really, we don't make any money. If we sell it to a distributor, we don't make any profit at all on a game. That is, they just basically help move some stock for us. If we can make anything, it's on the Kickstarter helps make a little bit, but obviously we'll work very hard to get that up and running and doing all the stuff around that. And then if we get any direct sales, that's good. And then we can occasionally sell to individual retailers, and we come off a little bit better with that. But like I was saying earlier, that the market's changed so much. When we first began, because the games were in short supply, really, we could go to a dozen, 20 retailers in the country and be hopeful to get good sales off them. But these days, they just buy from the central distributor. And that sort of being a small fish in the pond now, it ain't quite so easy in one respect. But then Kickstarter makes you reach a bigger pond, I guess. So you just got to keep going and trying to make something happen.
Do you think it's still strange being involved in the industry for as long as you have, that you can't walk into like a Tesco's or an Asda or even a Toys R Us, and there isn't like a real. There isn't what I would call a board game section.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
I think as far as you get, I've seen Monopoly Gamer.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only one which I've seen kind of cross between where people in board game groups have said you should try Monopoly Gamer. I'm not playing Monopoly. Monopoly's rubbish.
Yeah.
But it's the only one I've seen that's kind of ended up in the supermarkets.
Well,
obviously,
supermarkets definitely. I mean, but Waterstones, for example, would be the best example of somewhere that's got quite close. They've taken Hive, and they take Lucador and things like that. But if you go
they've got Sheriff of Nottingham, and they've also got Osprey Games. Yes. Escape from Castle Colditz. I've seen that in there. Yeah, as
they
well.
do. And what I found with Waterstones, but I don't go in regularly, but you'll find for one period of time they've got quite a nice area. It looks really good, and then suddenly it's reduced down, and you're alongside kind of gifts and things, kind of giveaway gifts, and you kind of think, they're just trying to move that stock on again. Now, I think that sort of sense of a permanent place in the high street is sadly lacking. And it's been that way in this country for a long time. But I went to France and I was shopping around it was in Dieppe because my in-laws were living over there at the time, and I was amazed in their local supermarket you had things like Lost Cities, Carcassonne. They were just sitting there on the shelves like quite normally. People come along and buy that, and you don't think of France as being a kind of gaming centre in the same way you do Germany. Germany maybe, I would expect it, but not, I guess France.
No,
exactly.
I've seen it at Waterstones, as I say. It's you go into like all the toy shops, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the 15th version of kind of Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the game with the dog where you squeeze the pump and the pretend poo comes out. Oh yeah,
that's lovely, isn't it?
And I'm just like going, it's like if I would I'd put Dixit in there. I'd let the kids have Dixit. Yeah. Why aren't the shelves full of King Domino and stuff like that? Yeah. Why isn't there like Tumble Tree, or even things like, I don't know, kids would go crazy if they could see something like Mice and Mystics. It's what do you do? You're a little mouse, you're running about, you're getting into adventures, you're fighting spiders and stuff like that. And for some reason it's kind of, and I hear about you getting board games in places like in America, and Target and Walmart, and they're saying, you just go in and Target's got a sale. It's kind of, I managed to pick up X, Y, and Z kind of game from Target because they had it on a sale. And I'm walking about in the shops in the UK, and I'm like, unless I'm going to a specialist board game outlet who are restricted for space, so can't have that much cardboard, you're almost like kind of forced online. Is there stuff that you're seeing nowadays which you're kind of like is still kind of like going, it's still kind of, I guess, getting you excited, kind of blowing your mind, making you think that's an incredible idea that they've kind of taken to the table. I mean, do you guys still get together and partake in the hobby yourself? Yeah.
I mean, we're very fortunate in having people who collect games rather more than we do. We do have a good collection of games each, but because we spend so much time designing, and I guess that's an exciting hobby for us, and I think that's a growing hobby for a lot of people, by the way, that design in itself is like a counter hobby almost to playing games, really. But it does absorb huge amounts of time designing games. But no, we play every week, and we have done for 20 years or so on a Thursday evening, and we have a different section of people that either come to us or we go to them. And some of those people are really serious collectors, so they go to Essen and they'll get a dozen, 20 games or something, and we work through what they like and work with them. So, I think we're fairly well up to pace with things. We don't tend to miss any of the things that are in the kind of heavier Euro end of things. We wouldn't be looking at everything that comes out. I haven't played Exploding Kittens yet, for example. So, we're not gonna, we don't run around trying to find that, but we do played Love Letters and, that we're quite happy to go quite a range. Gary's daughter plays quite a lot of, I was going to say fluffy, but you know what I mean, just lighter games that are quite quick and that sort of thing. But no, we're always looking for the great games. I guess that's what it is, really. The games that you play more than 2 or 3 times that you're going to go back to again and again and again. The one most recent years that stands out, I think, has been Solkian. We think that's brilliant. The original. Yes. I don't go much on the expansions. We've not had a real go at them, but we don't feel we need to because it just grips us every time the way that game works. Not just because of the big cogs in it, but it's because the cogs give you that sense of massive forward planning and timing. It's just terrific. So.
Yeah, it's not like a deck of cards where you're thinking, well, I can measure the time by how many's left to draw on the deck. You've got a massive series of cogs that well, this is moving round and the crystal skulls are being placed. Right. And there's an awful lot of visual representations of, well, this guy's just built another building. The guy up here, he's climbing up the god favoritism track. I'm deciding whether or not I'm going to get wood or food in this thing because I know that we're going to be feeding our guys in the next round, and I'm probably going to lose about 4 people if I don't kind of play my cards right. So I had the pleasure of playing Zolkin with a gentleman who took part in actual tournaments.
Oh right,
and which I'd never heard of, but he had the patience and the grace to take myself and Colin through kind of teaching us how to play this game, and it was very, very elegant. And it was one of those, it was the example of a great Euro was that looking at the board, you looked at it and went, somebody's eaten a bag of crayons and they've just basically thrown up on the board because there's spaces and blocks and colours kind of everywhere. But then when it all worked together, it was kind of it's absolutely brilliant, very kind of elegant.
And it is unusual in that respect. And the thing is because it is so unusual, it stands out in that respect. Because the thing is, we do like lots and lots of games. We play an awful lot, but we also play a lot of games that without being the same, that you kind of feel you're doing the same thing, and it kind of merges into one as time goes on. Which game is which? Because we don't play them a huge amount of times, 2 or 3 times at most. So when we do that and we play, we do a little post game session where we do a little video. Now it's called What's Not to Like, which we have a few people look at, not many, but we like doing it because it really pinpoints what we're looking for in a game, because it helps us then think, what are we trying to create when we create a game? And one of the things for quite a few weeks I kind of ran round in the thing was saying, is this a great game? Well, it's of too vague a concept. I've dropped that eventually, but in a way, that's what we are looking for. The kind of things that really, make something into one of those games that you think, wow, this has got such good replay value because it has such originality and because your decision making is so. It's not only interesting, but it's different each time you play. You're not going through the same storyline over and over again. So
it's very, very subjective, isn't it? Board games. I mean, there are people who it's strange because I think there are people who are willing to die on particular hills.
Yes.
In terms of things like terraforming Mars is one of these games that I've played and I've just went, I was expecting something else to what I've played, and I didn't get on with it. It was just one of these games that I kind of felt, I've got other games in my bag I would have rather played.
Yes.
And I think it was the way that we played it, and we've had this discussion on the show before about how it came out. And then there's been other games which have just completely enthralled me, like Letters from Whitechapel, with the tension and the chasing and everything like that. It's been fantastic. But the reviews on board games seem to be usually relatively quite positive. It's very rare that I've heard somebody just you just see them running through and going, "This is rubbish."
Yeah, I think that's
and then
right.
throwing it against the wall.
Yeah.
I still think I think it's because it is, very, very subjective. One man's scythe will be another guy's kind of Zolkin kind of thing, which is,
I think that's right. And I think the thing is with them, with these things, is that you go to Board Game Geek and you do get people, giving it a 1 or a 2, and they've got, got relatively good reasons for doing it. But I suppose that overall, the problem I have with the Board Game Geek sort of rating system is that eventually everything ends up in, a decent game ends up at 7,
7.5.
and if it's not so good, it's about 6.5 or 6. It kind of not much differentiation at all, because you're quite right, it all smudges out. But I think it's not difficult to design a game, and I think children can design games fairly easily.
Do all the time, don't they? I mean, if you give a kid a box of Lego and a dice, and went away for a couple of hours, he'd find he or she would find some way of making that work, wouldn't they?
And so therefore, as long as the game kind of works and you don't have any huge sort of minefield in it where the game collapses, somebody out there will kind of find that is okay, and they'll go with it. But it's how you notch it up into being something that really grips you in some way and makes you want to go back to that game again and again and again. And at the same time as saying that, that's another strange thing that's happened with the hobby. Actually, people don't want to go back to the same game over and over again, generally, because most people want to play new games and play something different and have another experience. And that's a great thing. I mean, if we all read, Lord of the Rings over and over again, I've read it a few times, but the thing is, I don't do that anymore. I'd rather read a new book and find out some new ideas and, move on with my thinking. And I think games have moved on like that, which is terrific, because I think it brings games to being more like books, more like CDs, more like films. We're not just Monopoly over and over again.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is that the price seems to be creeping up on cardboard itself.
Yes,
and it's not unusual to see a kind of a what you would call maybe a big box plastic miniatures game to be creeping over the $100 into about $125 or it'll be $110 and the super deluxe version will be $120, which is that's playing that once or twice, you got to think the kind of the value for money kind of side of things.
Definitely, and I think the other side of that is that people are bringing out things that cost £20, but there's not much in the box for £20 either. Not in terms of components, but actually in terms of game, and it's still only a 1 or 2 plays, and it's not really gripping you. So I think the challenge is, I'm sure it's the same with all these other things I've said, like books or like CDs or DVDs, is that if you want to be successful, the market will make that happen. It will tease out those things that are not so good, and those companies are not producing good quality at good prices, and will other people go to the wall. We might be amongst those, but it's not our job. It's not so. We're not in such a.
I know. I mean, unless you must be kind of the other side where you're saying you are in this situation where, I guess this doesn't kind of have to go anywhere. It can continue to be a hobby. Where if you're just starting out in your career, you kind of like, I need to build on this. When do I get my big game? Some people will be wondering where their breaks are, because let's face it, a lot of Kickstarters, they'll make the game, it'll be a successful game and it'll fund, but it doesn't give them the ability to go ahead and run a whole number of print runs,
No.
so that they can then push it to distribution. And then, I mean, I think what you were talking, what we spoke about before in the show, is the ability to create a tale for a game.
Yeah.
So you are the guy like Osprey that ends up with your games in Waterstones. You know, you've got that distribution channel, and then you've just got a distributor that is printing demanding copies that they can print off and kind of send it on.
Yeah.
As usual, though, what we generally do in these type of episodes is we talk for like 25 minutes with absolutely nothing to do with the reason that you're here. But I'm interested in two things. Finding out, obviously, who did more about Darien Apocalypse, but obviously finding out who did that rather awful Scottish accent on the video.
I can hand over to him right now. Because why doesn't Gary take over? This is his moment. Ask him that question again, and off he goes.
Yeah.
I've taken on the mantle, Richard.
I heard the Scottish accent that you did on that video.
Yes, it was done for comic effect.
Was it?
I thought afterwards. I thought it sounded a bit more like Ian Paisley, actually.
I can't even comment on. I just kind of listened to it, and I was like, "You're gonna let people try and you've got to try and do a Scottish accent when you play this game." And I just imagined you sitting there with your cup of tea and your little pinky pointing in the air.
That's right.
And then saying, "I'm just about to do a Scottish accent," and going, "All right, you better play this game in a Scottish accent if you've got a Scottish accent."
Ramsey Nisbet.
No, don't. That's not how they talk either. No, we can go back to Stephen because I'm moving to. Do you want to tell us a bit about Darien and how it works and the mechanics behind it? I mean, who came up with the idea? Was it something that yourself and Stephen came up with and Phil came up with? Was it a joint thing?
Well, it always starts off with one person, and Darien was Steve's. He read a book about the Darien expedition because it's fairly well, not very well known at all.
No.
And he was sort of fascinated by it. You know, this huge effort to try and establish a trading outpost in the Panama area to rival, England and Spain, etc. At the end of the 17th century, and it bankrupted Scotland and probably led to the Act of Union with England just a few years later, because Scotland just sank so much of its own money into it, and it was a fascinating sort of story. And so he started talking about it with us, and then he said, "Well, I think we ought to do a game on it," basically, and off he went. And then Phil and I chip in game testing sessions and point out when he's gone off on too much of a beaten track, and we all try and pull it together. That's one of our strengths, in a way, that there's three of us to sort of knock ideas around. I think a lot of solo designers find that's difficult, and they've only got it in their own head, and you can get very obsessed with things and find it very hard to change things in designs.
Yeah.
Whereas we're very open to sort of constructive criticism from each other, and we change things quite a lot. I mean, some of our games have taken years to finally get to a point where we think, yes, this is pretty much finished now. And Darien probably took best part of a year still, because we tried to make a game we're proud of, and this one's probably our first foray into more of a worker placement idea, in that you're using your settlers to explore the Darien Peninsula, uncover different sorts of terrain with different sort of resources. You're trying to ship those resources back to Scotland, sell them, recruit more settlers, come back out again, and gradually expand your colony. But at the same time, you're faced with the things that the actual settlers were faced with, famine, pestilence, disease, war death. Because the Spanish were not keen on the Scots trying to sort of muscle in on their sort of territory, and the local native population, although they were initially quite receptive to them, I think were still swayed by the Spanish, and the Spanish, persuaded them to sort of turn against the Scots as well, and so they faced great adversity and tragedy in the end.
Okay. So how do you go about playing it? What would I do when, once I've got the box opened up and I am about to play my turn, how would you go about kind of playing the game?
Well, you can play it solo, or you can play it up to 4 players, and you can choose to either play it cooperatively with all the players playing against the horsemen, which is the sort of famine, war, death, pestilence idea, trying to beat them, beat their score, or you can play it competitively. So you've still got the horsemen, but the horsemen are sort of trying to destroy all of you, and it's who does best amongst each individual player compared to the horsemen. So you choose before you start whether you're going to be cooperative or you're going to be competitive. And then each player has a player board, which is their side of the Darien Peninsula, and you've got an action array board. So there's various actions like sort of embarking the ship, loading the ship, moving the settlers once they get there, taking resources, trading, building, coming back to Scotland and doing company business to sort of sell your goods and generate income. And so there's also the nice idea is that the Apocalypse cards are turned over, so it'll tell you where the horsemen are active this turn, in which worlds, either mine or yours or whoever else's. And it will tell you, if I'm the lead player, it will tell me how many actions I've got. So I might have 6 actions, and everybody else will maybe have 2 or 3 actions, depending on the card. So if I do an action to load the ships, other people can choose to copy that action. They use one of their actions to load their ships as well. Then I might choose to move the ship out, and I will do that for everybody. Nobody else has to copy that one. So the ships go out to the Darien, and then we might move the Scots onto Darien, and so everybody else will probably choose to do that as well. So they'll have used 2 actions up, I'll have used 3 by this point, and so we'll all explore with our Scots, and then we'll see what we turned up, and then I might choose to build with the resources that I've discovered, and then other people will choose. They've only got 1 action left now, remember. I've still got 3. They may choose not to build, so I may build, and then I may trade, and then they may choose to trade. And then I may, if I've got enough left, I may choose to bring the ships home with whatever goods I've created. So the turns progress round the players with each time a different Apocalypse card is turned over, so each time the horsemen are in different worlds. And the lead player has a certain number of actions, and the other players have their number, and then they copy or not as it goes on. So you play through a series of turns. The horsemen will be scoring points for their presence if we can't get rid of them, because there's ways to get rid of the horsemen in the game. And we will score points for having built buildings. So we're trying to establish our colony by building the various buildings, and the buildings allow us to generate income. So it's sort of more of a Euro game than we've ever done before in many respects, which is something for us.
Did you kind of went, oh no?
Yeah. That's right. What have we done?
What have we done?
No,
this is maybe a Scottish game.
I like Euro games, and no matter what the theme, I do enjoy Euros, because I like creating engines in games and feeling I'm achieving something and making decisions about what I'm going to do. And you do certainly have to do that in this game. You have to make decisions, and it can be finely balanced often. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't. But that's what games are about, isn't it? Taking chances sometimes. You don't want a game that's so predictable that everything you do is going to come to fruition and it's just plod, plod, plod. Oh, who's got the most points? You can get catastrophes in Darien, but they don't necessarily wipe you out of the game. They might just hold you back for a while. And so you never feel you're totally out of the game as well. We hate games where someone can just be so demolished that they've got no chance, and their interest in the game diminishes, and that spoils it for other players as well, because you want everybody to have a good social occasion.
Yeah, you're kind of just going through the motions basically, which is never good. What I like about this and is the interactivity between players, because there's nothing worse. And I was just actually speaking about this the other night with Isaac Childress from who did Gloomhaven. Yeah, and his newest game is like a city building type game, but he was saying it's the interactivity, and we were saying, well, things like Power Grid, you can quite happily, even again Terraforming Mars. I don't hate Terraforming Mars, I just didn't get on with it, but you can quite happily get on, and whether you've got a 5-player game, a 2-player game, a 4-player game, you've never really had. Another player will never have a massive effect on what you're kind of. Yeah,
you're in your own little silo, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only in case of the actions that you take are having an effect on how you score points at the end. So there's very little interactivity. I like the fact that you have to pay attention to the players, copying their actions. That kind of.
I mean,
interests me.
A lot of Ragnar games have a lot of interaction because that's the sort of games we like. But the good thing about Darien is that there's no downtime really. I'm doing my go, and you're thinking, am I going to copy him or not? Am I going to save my action for something that he's going to do later? And so you're sort of always watching out what other people are doing and making decisions based on that. And that's the crux of a good game, is getting people to feel they're making decisions upon which they either achieve something or they'll fail or they'll only just not make it or whatever. And you get a sense of building within the game and moving towards a conclusion. And you're seeing the horsemen accumulating points. You're thinking, because you can also pray in this game, one of the actions is to pray, in which case the Scots, who were devout believers, would pray for deliverance from the pestilence and from war, etc. And so you can pray in Darien and try to knock the horsemen back. And if in the cooperative game, that's especially an important action. But even in the cooperative game, if you're particularly inundated by the predations of the horsemen, you're going to have to pray, and you're going to have to try and build a chapel and increase your praying ability, etc. So it's got lots of nice elements to it that I'm hoping that people will see that and back us on Kickstarter to get us over the line.
Because you've run this campaign before.
Yeah, we set the total too high, I think, because the game was coming in at 2.5 kilograms, and the shipping costs were just phenomenal. So we had to set the target higher because of that, and it just wasn't going to make it. So we pulled the plug about a week before it ended, and now as Steve I think said earlier, we've trimmed the board size and the array boards, etc. Managed to save quite a lot of cardboard and hence weight, so it's coming in at around 2 kilograms now, and so it's not as much to ship it. So we've set a lower target, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed now because we're nearly there.
I've noticed that you've taken not the unusual step, but including shipping in the charges kind of straight away. There's not like there seems to be a little bit of a trend at the moment where you're paying £40 for the base game, and then the shipping is to be decided once the
I don't like
the
that.
campaign kind of ends.
I don't like that at all. I want to know how much it's going to cost me, and that's why we've done shipping included, so that people know if you're in Europe it's going to cost you 40 quid. If you're in the UK, it's going to cost you 35, etc. And that's why the Far East and Australia and New Zealand, it's £60, because it's really expensive to send things to New Zealand and Japan, etc. But that's the full amount you're going to pay. You're not going to be asked to pay some extras.
No, I've heard two. I've heard two sides to the argument of it. I've heard the argument where it says, well, if I am charging, say, £50 for a game, and it's £10 shipping, then the total amount that I get, money deducted from Kickstarter's fees for the total amount that I bring in, so therefore I automatically have to inflate my prices to take into account, if I charge shipping as a separate item, the amount of fees that I'm going to take is going to be less, which is why they charge kind of shipping kind of separately. So I've seen arguments that skew on the side of the game developer. I've seen arguments that skew on the side of the customer. I think I'm neither here nor there, because I guess the only thing is the only time it comes into trouble is if the person that's doing the creator hasn't done their calculations correctly in the first place, and they end up having to stick 25 quid on as a shipping charge because they've not done the calculations for the worst case scenario in terms of shipping if they have reached kind of all their stretch goals. But no, at the same time, if you've put, I guess there's nothing worse than thinking, well, I've pledged £50 for this game, and then another 3 months down the line I've got to fork out another £15, which I kind of wasn't expected.
Yeah, I think that's
and then
not right.
you're asking me to kind of make a decision and pay this extra money and give me a deadline and say I've got to do it within a certain time, which I guess you're kind of taking the control away. But we'll see. It's one of these things that'll either become a standard or not. I know that some people do it because the full free shipping thing, and I see this all the time on places like Amazon, where people are encouraged to offer free shipping and then include the shipping within the overall price.
It's not free shipping at all.
No, well, people don't like it because, again, the fees that they get charged by like Amazon and eBay are on the final selling price, so their actual shipping price takes a bit of a hit at the same time. So that's kind of interesting as well.
I mean, one of the things that's different about us is that, unlike a lot of game designers and producers, is we're not actually trying to make a lot of money. We're trying to design games and get them out there. We've never made enough money to be able to even dream of stopping our day jobs. And we're not trying to rip people off. We just want to produce the game for roughly the cost it is.
Yeah.
And we don't want to add extra shipping costs on. We want you to buy a game, you'll know what you're buying, you know what it costs, and hopefully you enjoy playing it and you give us some positive feedback. We get lots of really nice feedback. And that's what's enjoyable for us, is seeing people play the games. We play them with people. We play them at conventions with people. It's just great. It's a social thing for us. We're not profit maximizers. We're just trying to not lose money, basically. So we're not trying to sort of make everything we can.
Oh no, I mean, I have seen people that have their campaign has really taken off surprisingly well, and it wasn't something that they had planned for. In fact, a couple of people I've spoken to this year have ended up with kind of six figures in terms of the funding that they've had, and they weren't kind of the the Simon cool mini or not type of guys. They were just ordinary guys that had a good idea that people kind of got behind and ended up backing them, and they ended up kind of taking in kind of six figures. Sometimes it's almost like there's a hype train that people climb aboard on Kickstarter, which has got nothing to do with the game at all. The actual end product. It's almost like people getting excited for the next kind of the next Star Wars movie. People losing their minds over the latest kind of Avengers Infinity War trailer. They're not actually giving an opinion about a finished product that they've got in their hands or they've seen. They're getting excited and kind of almost pulled along by the excitement of the product itself, which is a strange thing. And I've seen a lot of people. It's quite funny, but I've seen a lot of people kind of get really involved in a Kickstarter campaign, and then if the creators had to come back and say, I'm sorry guys, it's going to be like 4 months late, it's like the normal reaction is, it's alright. It doesn't matter. I'm really not, I'll get the game eventually.
Well, that's nice that they trust the person enough. I mean, we've never gone over schedule with any of our Kickstarter games, which is something we're quite proud of, and we want to maintain that. So we rushed Darien out again once we pulled the plug and we changed the design and of the board and everything, in order to stick to that schedule, because we'd like to get it out by May next year, and we still can. But I really like people who are enthusiastic about, and you're talking about fan sort of the phenomenon of the fan, really, whether it's Star Wars or Marvel, Netflix or whatever, sort of these blockbuster type things. And I love it that people are enthusiastic about that, and it's great if they can get enthusiastic about games as well, because we need to grow the hobby, because otherwise we will just start to diminish again as more and more sort of 3D virtual reality type stuff starts to become more and more commonplace. We want the board game, the humble board game, to still be in everybody's homes and play it with their families, play it with their friends.
Yeah, but I think what it has over the video game aspect and even the VR aspect is that it's still very, very sociable. It's sitting down in front of a group of friends, regardless of what you're playing and whether it's a good game or a bad game. You're always ending up having a conversation with your buds about what's been happening.
And
during the week.
You dissect it after you've finished, and maybe have a bite to eat or something and a drink, and you just have a good chinwag about it and really enjoy yourselves. And that's it's better than going to the pub. It's cheaper than going to the pub as well. Buy a game for £40 and play it 6 or 7 times. You've got your money's worth, haven't you?
You can't get a good night out for £40 nowadays.
That's right.
You can't get a taxi home for £40 nowadays. Let's face it. If you stay in and you have like a couple of meals from the local Chinese restaurant, and by the time you have a couple of beers, you're looking £50 down the barrel of a gun quite easily, aren't you?
Well,
to be
this may say something about your eating habits, Richard, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about a group of friends. I'm not talking about me going out and spending £40 on a Chinese. My goodness. In a nutshell, because I am conscious of the time, because there has been, technical issues tonight caused by the fact that Windows 10 decides it needs to spend 45 minutes updating its software. Thanks, Microsoft. In a nutshell, how would you sum up? What's the elevator pitch for Darien Apocalypse?
Well, in a nutshell, I suppose it's a game that you won't regret playing, I think, because you'll get a lot out of it. It's a game where you're going to make decisions, you might make mistakes, but you'll get successes as well. And if you're playing cooperatively, you're going to share those successes and those highs and those lows. And there's a great sense of, it sounds pathetic, but there's a great sense of achievement when you knock the horseman back. And if you eventually see, it's like a doom clock in some games where, like Forbidden, the Matt Leacock games where you're working against a sort of doom bar coming down. The horsemen are a bit like that, and you see them getting stronger and stronger, and you think, guys, we've got to pull together. Even if we're playing competitive, we've got to pull together, otherwise we're all going to suffer. So there's a great sense of camaraderie playing the game. It's not just you doing a solo effort. You're going to play together, which is really nice.
Okay. And you can get involved if you're in the UK. You can get involved for the grand sum of £35.
Exactly, a bargain.
And a bargain indeed. You are allowed to buy 2 if you want.
Yeah, well, I've just put a frequently asked question on saying if you want to pledge for 2, double the pledge value, and then knock a £5 off and pledge that amount, and we'll know you need 2, and we'll send you 2.
Well, that's pretty cool. Now, if you're in the EU, it's £42. If you're over in the States, it's £47. So that's pretty decent, taking into account the shipping for America as well.
Well, we're subsidising the shipping because we don't want people in America to feel it's too expensive. And so, as I say, we're not profit maximisers. We just want to produce games and get people playing and not lose money. And we won't lose money on it at this rate. We're not making a lot of money, but we're not losing, and we're happy with that.
Excellent. Where can people find you guys on the internet if they've listened along tonight and said, well, I'm not only interested in finding out more about Darien, I'm interested in finding out about the back catalogue as well.
Yeah.
Where do you guys exist on the kind of the internet, interweb nets exactly?
Ragnar Brothers, all one word, .com.
Are you got a shop on there so people can pick up copies of games as well?
We've sold out a lot of our older titles, but we've got some copies of Nina and Pinter left, and Barking Up the Wrong Tree, and our newest game, Backpacks and Blisters, the second edition, which is selling very well in the Lake District, fortunately, and it make an ideal Christmas present.
There you go.
So go and have a look.
So what was that? What was that again, Gary?
Backpacks and Blisters. Ragnar.
And how much does it go for?
That's £22.85, including shipping.
£22.85 including shipping, and that is and that's Ragnar Brothers. Is that .com or .co.uk?
.com.
.com, RagnarBrothers.com, £22.85.
I know you're
Brilliant.
going to be going on there and buying one, Richard. I know. I can see.
I
can tell in your voice.
I'm already it's already in the cart. It's all ready to go. Oh, good, because we'll go down to Lake District next year.
Oh, no,
So
the Lake District is a
we'll
fantastic place, and
so we'll take it down that way.
the board looks fantastic in backpacks.
Excellent. Do you exist on the interwebs yourself, Mr. Dicken?
Well, only in as much as I've got a Facebook page, but
That's it.
It's we're on Twitter. I'm on Twitter as @Ragnar Brothers. Steve's at Steve Kendall.
Okay.
6, I think. Steve Kendall 6, I think.
Yeah.
We're not big social media people, but we do our best.
Well, what we'll do is we will make sure that all of the links that you give us, including that link to the bargain, £22.85, will be in the show notes, so that we've got notes to show.
Yeah, thanks very much, Richard.
Not a problem at all. This has been fun. This is what always happens, is I always say, we'll do like 20 minutes, half an hour just to talk about the game, and then it ends up almost being a kind of an hour long. But thank you for coming on the show.
Even though I only heard half of it, it's been very enjoyable.
Your half was better. Don't tell Stephen.
I won't tell him that. I won't tell him.
Just tell. If you turn around and say to him just now that I think that his half was the best. If you do that just now.
Yeah, I will do. Yeah.
Excellent. If you want to keep an eye on, talk about, and then there'll be an email story about two board game designers having a fight over a comment that was made over a podcast.
Yeah, he's got a glass in his hand, so I better be careful.
Better be careful. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to Google, search for We're Not Wizards. You will find us on Twitter. You will find us on Facebook. You will find us on Instagram. You will find us on YouTube at Tabletop. We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. You will find us on all the popular podcast places, including Podknife and Spreaker and Stitcher and Acast and all these fabulous places. If you like what you've listened to tonight, and I would ask you to not only listen tonight, but go and check out Darien Apocalypse, because it sounds like, they're UK guys. So let's have a look at what the UK guys are doing, and if you fancy chucking them a buck, then do so. If you fancy chucking them a little bit more, then even more, that's fantastic. If you have liked what you've listened tonight, do us a favour, jump onto Apple Podcasts and drop us a subscription, because what that means is that every child gets an extra Christmas present this year for every subscription that we get. I don't know how it happens, Apple just sorts it out. If you like us even more than that, feel free to drop us a rating or a review, and as we say, if you are going to give us a review, don't give us a 10, because that makes us big-headed, but don't give us a 1, because that makes us cry. Give us a 5, because it's in the middle, and it's average, and we are a little bit average. But the gentlemen that have not been average tonight is, first of all, it is a big thank you for coming on to Mr. Gary Dicken. Thank you, Gary, for coming on.
No, my pleasure.
And hello, Stephen.
Say bye-bye, Stephen.
Say bye-bye, Stephen. That's absolutely fantastic. There's only two more things to do. The first thing is to, that was comedy gold. The first thing is to remember that we are many things. but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Gary?
Yeah.
No. And the second thing is to say goodbye.
Do I press buttons now and things?
No, you don't have to. No, just say goodbye.
Oh, bye-bye.
And it's a bye-bye for me. Do I press buttons? You better not be pressing buttons, because if we lose it at the end here, oh my goodness. Don't start pressing buttons. Get Stephen back on. He knew what he was doing. I knew what you happened when you're pressing buttons. You know what happened last time you pressed buttons?
I know.
We had
Let's
to start again.
Yeah.
Didn't we? So you just leave it alone, right?
Okay.
Step away.
I'm away from the mice.
Hands in the air. I want to see those fingers. But it's a goodbye from me. It's a protracted goodbye from me. Remember, so stay safe, roll sixes. Go and check out this game. Just have a look. See what you think. And it's a week to go. So 7 days. But until the next time, goodbye.